Number one was know your genre. It's better if you know what your genre is from the get-go. I was so naive. I was just sort of writing and just doing it, and I learned along the way. And that's why it took me forever. Aside from that, though, I think the biggest lesson I learned from my own publishing journey is
Some experts chase attention, but the smart ones build authority. You're listening to the Authority on Demand podcast, where credibility becomes your competitive advantage. Every week, we're pulling back the curtain on how founders and leaders turn expertise into inbound demand through books that position, media that converse, and strategies that actually move the needle. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authority on Demand. Now, let's turn your authority into leverage.
So they say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, but in publishing, what doesn't kill you makes you one amazing storyteller. On today's podcast, we're speaking with someone who survived her publisher going belly up, her editor disappearing into the publishing aether, and managed to create a thrilling crime series that's capturing readers' attention. Cindy Fazzi has turned every setback into a setup for success, and her character, Domingo, a bounty hunter with a writer's heart, proves that the most compelling stories come from the most complex contradictions. Cindy, welcome to the Authors on Mission podcast.
thank you so much for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here.
Hey, real quick before we jump back in, if you're loving what we're doing here, hit that subscribe button and drop us a like. We're bringing you the best authors, the most real conversations, and all the writing wisdom that you didn't know you needed. So stick around because it only gets better from here. All right, now let's get back to the conversation.
Of course. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And, I mentioned a little bit about one of your characters here, but to our audience out there, the books I'm referring to here is the Domingo series, which is one of, just one of Cindy's amazing pieces out there. So we're going to be chatting all about that today. Before we talk about the books, I would love to chat a little bit about who you are and what brought you into the writing world. So I understand you were a journalist in 3 different countries, the Philippines, Taiwan, and the United States. So can you share a little bit about that and how that shaped your understanding of storytelling and character development?
Yeah, my name is Cindy Fazzi. I'm Filipino-American. I was born and raised in the Philippines. I immigrated to this country in 1989. My background is in journalism. I am a former Associated Press reporter. I have a master's degree in journalism. And 2 weeks ago, my publisher, Thomas and Mercer, simultaneously published books one and two of my Domingo the Bounty Hunter series. And it's been a really long journey from 1995, believe it or not, is when the first time I wrote the very first draft of the first version of book one. And that's exactly 30 years ago.
Wow, yeah. So it's crazy that you've had a kind of a journey of ups and downs, and it's been many years. But here you are now with a series out, and it's clear that these experiences did shape your perspective on everything. And I think that's important for us to know is that every author learns from this experience and cultivates it and turns it into a book, whether it's fiction or nonfiction or whatever it might be. So I do appreciate that. So to dive into the series itself a little bit, what exactly inspired you to create a bounty hunter who also writes immigration advice? So tell us more about that. Is there a certain experience in your life that is reflected in Dominguez's character?
Yeah, so I am an immigrant, so immigration is really close to my heart. And the character of a bounty hunter itself, it was inspired by an article I read in the New York Times a long time ago about a real bounty hunter in New York who specialized in catching criminal undocumented immigrants. And by that, I mean people whose crimes are a lot more serious than just overstaying in the United States. We're talking about convicted, I don't know, murderers or, rapists who happen to be undocumented immigrants. So I thought that that was really fascinating. At that time, I was already developing my female protagonist. Her name is Monica Reed. This is in book one. And she is a biracial, undocumented Filipino woman who comes to the United States to look for her American father who doesn't know that she exists. And so that's how the book started. But then I needed one character to kind of challenge Monica's journey in the United States. And that's how I came up with the bounty hunter character.
Understood. So that's really cool. You kind of needed a foil between both, right? So that's why you
Right.
kind of that own character. It's a very unique concept, right? I mean, like, I feel like, of course, there's bounty hunters in books and movies, but I feel like it's something I don't always see every day. So it's nice, like breath of fresh air. It's exciting to hear about. So that being said, share with us a little bit more. I mean, you actually had to release both books simultaneously, which is really cool. I'm wondering if there's a certain reason why you wanted to do so, and also what challenges you faced in doing that.
Yeah, so the simultaneous release is really a blessing in disguise because my original publisher, it's a small company called Agora Books, um, originally published book one in 2023 under a different title. And 6 months after Agora Books published book one, it went out of business. And so they were supposed to publish book two, but obviously they couldn't. And I thought that I was really devastated. I thought that was the end of book one. That was the end of my series. That was the end of me, Danielle. And so luckily, a much bigger publisher, Thomas and Mercer, came along and bought the series. And Thomas and Mercer asked me if I was willing to change the title. They said it's only been out for 6 months. So they were assuming, and they were right, that not many people have seen the book. So they said, if you change the title, we'll give it a new book cover and we'll release it almost like it's brand new. Plus, we'll release book two since I have already written it. And so that is how it came about that my publisher published both books at the same time. It is an experiment. They have never done it before. I've never done it before. So we're really excited. We're hoping that readers would love the experience of, reading a book. And if they like it, as soon as they're ready, book two is available. Because in publishing, usually you would write book one, it will get published. You write book two, another year or two passes, and then it's published. So by the time, let's say, books one and two actually materialize, it's like 4 or 5 years have passed. So this is a big um, innovation on the part of Thomas and Mercer.
Yeah, no, that's a really cool approach because you're absolutely right. If I read a book, I'm more inclined to pick up the sequel right after and not necessarily wait a couple years when I might not be thinking about the book anymore, or, it's sitting on my shelf, but it's just something I never really thought to look into if there even is a second one. But it's awesome that you have it one after the other, so like they could just dive right in. That's an amazing strategy. Um, so I just have to ask them because you did mention that you had some struggles with the publishing process. I mentioned a little bit in my introduction there, but it also seems like they kind of had your back, at least in the idea of publishing both books at once. So, can you tell us a little bit more about that? What exactly was that struggle that you faced in terms of getting the book out?
Right. So back in 1995, when I wrote the very first version of book one, so I was a green card holder. I was waiting for my citizenship. I felt very lucky. My own immigration journey is really straightforward, very boring. I felt very lucky and very aware that there were millions of other immigrants who were not as lucky. And so the whole idea was to write a novel about their plight. And so at that time, it took me about 2 years to write the first version of book one. I started sending it out to literary agents, and it was universally rejected. They, I was so naive, like I didn't really know what my genre was, and they told me that I had written a literary novel and that it was very uncommercial. It
No.
was unsellable. They said, well, immigration, nobody wants to read about immigration. They said, plus you have a Filipino protagonist. So this is basically uncommercial. And so I set it aside and I wrote other things. So two of my other books actually got published first, but I kept going back to book one. And I kept rewriting it. I rewrote it in 2008. I rewrote it again in 2017. And this time I rewrote the book from the perspective of the bounty hunter, who at that time was just a secondary character. And he originally appeared in just a few chapters. But it occurred to me that maybe he was more interesting. And then, so what happened was the book organically became a thriller once I changed the narrator,
Mm.
because the bounty hunter was all about the chase and the hunt, compared to my original protagonist, who was more interested in the looking for her father. The chase was
Okay.
secondary. So once I flipped it around, it organically became a thriller. And once it became a thriller, it became commercial. And that was when I found a literary agent who really loved both books. And so that's how it went. I would not recommend my path, my publication path. I think if you're writing, it's better if you know what your genre is from the get-go. I was so naive. I was just sort of writing and just doing it, and I learned along the way, and that's why it took me forever.
Yeah, I mean, that's really a crazy story. It kind of just went full circle with your entire
Yeah.
concept. I can only imagine the stress and editing everything, shifting from one character's perspective to an entirely new one. That's pretty much an entire book rewrite.
Yeah.
So kudos to you though, because clearly you made the right choice. You packaged it up nicely, and here we have it now. So I'd love to shift a little bit into character development because you really have very complex characters. You do an amazing job creating them. So I'm wondering if you have a certain strategy for doing that. Like Monica Reed, for example, she's really compelling. But even if, as a professional bounty hunter, like bends the rules a little bit. So it's back and forth. I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about that as well.
Yeah. Actually, the book really started with the Monica Reed character. She is biracial. She is, part Filipino, part Caucasian. And what inspired that is that in the Philippines, there are thousands of Monica Reeds.
Mm,
They are biracial and they don't necessarily belong in either country. They feel like they don't belong in the Philippines and they don't belong in the United States. Their dads, like Monica, are usually Americans who are soldiers who are deployed in the US military bases in the Philippines. And they would be there for several years and they would have these relationships with local women and they would have children and then they would leave. They would leave the women and the children behind. And so that is where Monica Reed's character came from. It's I know a lot of women like her back in the Philippines, and it's a very difficult situation, not feeling like you belong in either country.
right. Yeah, it's unfortunate, and I've seen others like go through that sort of thing in the past too, where do you belong? I mean, I guess at the end of the day, you're yourself, but it's hard when you feel like you need to choose one, and you have to go that process of accepting yourself in all different areas. Is that something that your characters went through as well? Just learning to,
Absolutely. And
yeah.
absolutely. It's so in as much as she's looking for her father, she's also looking for herself,
Mm,
really, and looking for that sense of belongingness. And so Domingo, on the other hand, he is 100% Filipino who is a naturalized American citizen. So his story is slightly different. So between Domingo and Monica, you get a bigger picture of different kinds of immigrants. And in book one, so the novel pits a dogged bounty hunter and a desperate woman in hiding. So they are compatriots and they are both in the United States in pursuit of the American dream, but their dreams are on collision course.
I like they said that collision course because you're right. I mean, I could see how you not of that, but right, but you built it up throughout the book so that at one point they do reach that course, and
Why? Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, wonderful stuff. Let's transition a little bit into research method. I mean, unless you are a bounty hunter, I have a feeling you don't
Yeah.
have direct experience. So how did you kind of get into the bounty hunting world and learn a little bit about it? Did you have any specific process for doing?
Yeah. I know a lot of people ask me, they said, why did you write about a male bounty hunter? Why didn't you write about a female newspaper reporter or, a female journalist? Well, the thing is, I write fiction to get away from myself. And so I, in fact, deliberately chose a profession that's very different from mine. So the one thing I have in common with Domingo is that we're both Filipino Americans, but that's really it. Right. And so Bounty Hunter, I told you how that newspaper article inspired his character. So once I decided that I'm going to write about a bounty hunter and I knew nothing about the profession, I then put on my journalist's hat and all I did was to look for answers to my questions. And so I found this really good reference materials at the Department of Justice's website. They use a training manual for federal agents. It was actually written by a bounty hunter, and it's called The Advanced Bounty Hunter by Bob Burton. When I saw that, I'm like, this is everything that I need. In fact, it told me all the nuts and bolts of bounty hunting, which federal agents also use. It's, how to find a fugitive, how to arrest a fugitive safely, how to surrender the fugitive to, the sheriff's department or to local authorities. It basically told me step by step how to be a bounty hunter. And so that became my Bible while I was writing the book. I have also interviewed a female bounty hunter for perspective. And so I tried not to watch reality TV. There was that show really popular, Dog the Bounty Hunter. Um, I didn't watch that until after I've already found an agent and I found a publisher.
Understood. Well, I think that's such a cool concept. I mean, when I asked the question, I thought you were going to say, you went to the library or to Wikipedia and like, look at articles, but it was actually a guide specific to what you needed. So that's amazing. I think that a lot of writers forget that reading is a huge part of writing. They forget that all you have to do is like read a book like that, and there you go. You know the ins and the outs, at least a little bit enough to write about it. So
Yeah.
thank you for that tip. I think people can totally benefit from it. Um, so these are 2 books out right now, but something tells me there has to be more than just 2. Do you have any others sort of on the horizon, or what are your next projects if not?
Yeah, what I'm writing right now is an entirely new manuscript that has nothing to do with the series. So it is actually a new series with the same publisher. Other than that, it's kind of premature to talk about it. I would love to make a formal announcement once I get the go signal from my publisher. It shouldn't be too long. It'll be in the next few weeks or months.
Well, that's really exciting. I'm sure it'll come any day now. So we can be on the lookout to see if that is going to be in the works. We're looking forward to the title and
I'll definitely let you know.
where can we go to stay up to date? Do you have a certain website, social media, some place we can go and get
Yeah.
it all out?
So my website is cindyfazzi.com and my social media handle, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Blue Sky, I'm on Goodreads, YouTube. It's the same handle. It's at Cindy Fazzi.
All right. Well, there you have it, everybody. We're going to put the link in the description box of this podcast today. So when we're done chatting, you can go ahead and click on over and learn a little bit more. Um, that being said, though, I mean, I just have to know you have been writing for so long, but what can the audience members learn from you the most? Do you have a certain piece of advice that you'd like to give everybody to kind of lead them on with their day? Something you wish you knew that when you first started writing, for example.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Number one was know your genre
Oh,
before you
yeah,
start
that was
writing.
fun.
No, aside from that, though, I think the biggest lesson I learned from my own publishing journey is just the willingness to adapt.
Mm.
I think that if I had stuck with my original genre of literary fiction, my two books would never get published. They got published only because they're thrillers. And so I was willing to adapt. It's exactly the same story I wanted to tell, only from a different narrator. And so I was more than willing to do that in order for my stories, my books to see the light of day.
Understood. I appreciate that, and it is a huge piece of advice that we touched upon once, but it's important to reiterate it because I mean, hey, you got to know where you stand. You got to know who your audience is and your main message and all of that. So that being said, though, I mean, being that you did have to rewrite the book and go through all these edits, was there a certain schedule you followed? Like, I have to do this much writing in a certain day, or I have to make sure that I tackle this task a certain day. Did you plan that out necessarily? Did it kind of just flow with as life took you?
Yeah. I do. I'm one of those writers who write every single day, year round, except the only exception is if I'm actually traveling on vacation with my family, then I won't write at all. But at home, it would be 7 days a week, really, even on weekends, I would write. And I'm not talking like all day long. I mean, we all have day jobs, we have families, we have other things to do. But I always devote the first couple of hours of the day. I'm an early bird, so I wake up really early. And the very first few hours of the day are the best time for me to write fiction. And
Right.
then the rest of the day, I will do my other types of writing, my day job, marketing, my social media, and other things. But I reserve at least the first 2 hours of the day, every day, for fiction writing.
Well, there you go. I thank you for kind of laying that out for us. Everybody has their own process and whatever works
Right.
best in their own lives. So it's good to hear these different approaches so that we can figure out what works best for us. So Cindy, I'm wondering, do you happen to have anything else you'd like to share with the audience today? Maybe a word of wisdom to lead them off as they continue on with their writing journeys?
Yeah. I think if you're writing or if you want to write, it's really important to know why you're writing.
Mm.
Is it just, as a hobby? Is it for fun? Which is perfectly okay. The reason I say that is because writing, especially if you're interested in traditional publishing, takes a long time and there will be a lot of rejections along the way. Just the process of looking for an agent, and then once you have an agent, that's not a guarantee that you'll get published. Your agent will then try to sell it to publishers. Your agent will also get rejected. Both of you are going to get rejected before you finally find that right publisher. And so it's a really long and kind of difficult process. So it's important to know why you're writing and why you're doing this. For example, for me, I had a really strong motivation to write so that even after I got rejected so much, I kept going because my entire goal for writing fiction is to introduce Filipino-American characters to mainstream readers because there are so very few Filipino-American characters in books. I mean, if you pick a random book and if you find a Filipino American character, please let me know.
That would be
Go on Twitter, go on Instagram and tell me if you found one because it's really hard. So my entire goal is to add to the existing Filipino American literature. That was the motivation that kept me going.
well, there we go. I love that, and it's a very profound method as well. Something that we should all be doing. You know, I mean, to open the doors, spread the word, and really make sure people are recognizing everyone's cultures. I love that. You know, it's perfect to kind of. I mean, any young children, young adults reading it, it's a great way to see their who they are represented in books. So.
Right.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for your guidance. You
Thank
have
you.
some amazing tips here. I think we're going to be learning a ton from you. And to all of our audience members, again, please check out Cindy's website. We're going to put the links in the description box of this podcast today so you can click on over and get to know a little bit more about Cindy and what she has coming up in the world of Domingo. So Thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. It is a great pleasure. Thank you, Danielle.
Of course. And to all of our listeners today, just remember that we believe every writer has a story worth sharing. Every story has the power to transform both the teller and listener. So until next time, keep writing, keep dreaming, and keep pushing boundaries. We'll see you next time on the Authors on Mission podcast.
That's a wrap on another episode of the Authority on Demand podcast. If today's conversation sparked something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with a founder or leader who's ready to stop being the best kept secret in their industry. If you want to turn your expertise into inbound demand, head to authorityondemand.com to see how we help clients go from unknown to in demand. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, and I'll catch you on the next one. Now, go build some authority.